Commander Vrelintok of the 3rd Dominion Fleet had seen many things in his 40 cycles of military service. He had watched rebellions crushed, planets subdued, and entire civilizations reduced to footnotes in the Imperial archives. What he had never seen, however, was a prisoner who smiled during interrogation. The human did exactly that. Subject designation: Human 7749. Vrelintok announced to the observation chamber, his mandibles clicking with bureaucratic precision. Captured during the failed defense of Colony Outpost Meridian 6. Suspected tactical specialist. Through the reinforced transparisteel, the human sat in the interrogation sphere, restrained by neural dampeners that would incapacitate a Groxian warbeast. The creature looked utterly relaxed. His designation file said his name was Marcus Cole, though Vrelintok doubted that mattered. Prisoners were numbers. Numbers were easier to eliminate. Begin standard compliance protocol, Vrelintok ordered. The interrogation sphere hummed, pain inducers activated, flooding the subject with precisely calibrated suffering designed to break mental resistance without causing permanent damage. The Empire prided itself on efficiency. Marcus Cole yawned. "Is this thing on?" the human asked, tapping the neural dampener clamped to his temple. "Because I once had a massage chair that worked better than this." Vreltok's secondary eyelids flickered in confusion. "You should be experiencing neural agony equivalent to simultaneous limb severance." "Yeah, I'm getting more of a mild static shock vibe," Marcus replied, examining his fingernails with theatrical disinterest. "You guys might want to recalibrate your torture equipment. Honestly, I'm a little disappointed. The brochure promised state-of-the-art suffering." Subcommander Kill, standing beside Vrelintok, leaned closer to the viewing port. "Commander, his neural patterns are unusual. The pain receptors are firing correctly, but his brain is somehow routing the signals through emotional centers associated with amusement. He finds torture funny?" Vreltok's voice carried a note of disbelief that would have been career-ending if anyone else had heard it. "Not exactly," Kell adjusted her sensory array, frowning at the readings. "It appears he finds us funny." Inside the sphere, Marcus stretched as much as the restraints allowed. "So, here's the thing about humans. We have this quirk in our evolution. See, we come from a planet that spent millions of years actively trying to murder us. Predators, diseases, weather that could flash freeze or cook you depending on the season, and don't even get me started on the plants. Seriously, we have trees that explode." "Silence," Vrelintok commanded, though he noticed his own hand hovering over the intercom. "You will provide tactical data on human defense positions, or the interrogation will escalate." "Oh, it gets worse?" Marcus grinned wider. "Fantastic. But see, you're missing the fundamental problem with your approach. You're trying to break me with pain, and that's adorable. But humans have been dealing with pain since before we invented fire. We literally used to bite through wooden sticks during surgery. For fun, some of us run marathons. Do you know what a marathon is?" "Irrelevant," Vrelintok snapped. "It's where we run for 26 miles because a guy did it once and died. And we thought, yeah, that sounds like a good time." Marcus laughed, the sound echoing through the chamber with unsettling warmth. "Point is, you're playing the wrong game." Kill pulled up a data file, her scales rippling with something that might have been concern. "Commander, I recommend reviewing the human's capture report." Vrelintok scanned the document, his confidence wavering with each line. Marcus Cole, former survival instructor, psychological operations specialist, captured not during combat, but while surrendering, voluntarily, after single-handedly destroying 3 munitions depots and a command center. "Why did you surrender?" Vrelintok asked before he could stop himself. Marcus's smile took on a different quality, something sharp and calculating. "Because I wanted to meet you, Commander. Well, not you specifically. You seem nice enough. I wanted to meet whoever's running this invasion, and prisoners get the grand tour eventually, right? You surrendered to conduct reconnaissance." The idea was absurd. "Suicidal. Reconnaissance implies I'm being sneaky about it," Marcus corrected cheerfully. "I prefer to think of it as aggressive networking. Speaking of which, can we talk about your security protocols? Because they're terrible." Like genuinely impressively terrible. I counted 6 critical vulnerabilities just walking from my cell to this disco ball of pain. Kell's scales had gone completely pale. Commander, he shouldn't know the route. Prisoners are sedated during transport. The sedative you use is based on Zentari physiology, Marcus said, examining the restraints with professional interest. Doesn't work great on humans. We metabolize it as basically a light beer. I've been awake for every transport. Nice ship, by the way. Very clean except for Deck 7, Section 12. You've got a coolant leak there. Might want to check that before it becomes a problem. Reltatog felt something he hadn't experienced in decades, genuine unease. Increase the interrogation intensity to level 7. The sphere's hum became a shriek. Energy fields designed to simulate molecular disintegration activated. Marcus Cole grimaced, actually showing discomfort for the first time. Okay, he said through gritted teeth. That's legitimately unpleasant. Points for creativity. He took a shuddering breath, then laughed. Actually laughed. But here's what you still don't get. I told you humans evolved, dealing with pain. What I didn't mention is that we also evolved dealing with fear, isolation and psychological pressure. We're persistence hunters, Commander. We don't stop. We don't break. We just keep coming. You are restrained in the heart of an Imperial warship, Reltok said, trying to reassert control of the situation. You are one creature facing an empire of trillions. Yeah, Marcus agreed, his smile never wavering despite the torture field cooking his nerve endings. But I'm not here to fight an empire. I'm here to deliver a message. Alarms erupted throughout the ship. Kell spun to her console, her claws flying across holographic displays. Multiple hull breaches. Decks 3 through 9. Internal explosions in the weapons bay. Commander, we're under attack. From where? Reltok demanded, his training reasserting itself. All human vessels were destroyed in the initial assault. Not from outside. Kell's voice had gone hollow. The detonations are coming from inside the ship. From... She looked up, her eyes wide with horrified understanding. From the maintenance conduits the prisoner identified. Marcus Cole had stopped smiling. His expression had transformed into something far more terrifying, professional satisfaction. Remember when I mentioned I counted 6 vulnerabilities? He said quietly. I didn't just count them. I used them. Every transport, every bathroom break, every moment your guards assumed a sedated prisoner wasn't a threat. I've been planting improvised explosives throughout your ship for the past 4 days. Your own maintenance materials actually, very combustible when combined correctly. Reltok stared at the human, his mind struggling to process what he was hearing. You sabotaged an Imperial warship while imprisoned and under constant surveillance? Surveillance that assumed I'd act like a normal prisoner. Yeah, Marcus confirmed. Here's a human saying you should remember, assumption is the mother of all mistakes. Actually, that's not quite right. The actual saying is much more vulgar. But let's keep this professional. The ship shuddered. Secondary explosions rippled through the hull. Engineering reports critical damage to the hyperdrive coupling. Kell reported, her voice shaking. Life support compromised on 7 decks. Primary weapons offline. Commander, he's crippled us. One prisoner, Reltok whispered, the words tasting like ash. One unarmed restrained prisoner. Oh, I'm not trying to destroy your ship, Marcus said, his tone conversational despite the chaos erupting around them. That would be wasteful. No, I'm doing something much simpler. I'm making sure you can't run. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the space beyond the ship. Reltok's blood turned to ice. Emerging from Fetiel all around them were human vessels. Not the small defense craft from the colony. These were warships, dozens of them, bristling with weapons, and bearing insignia Reltok recognized from intelligence reports. The Earth Defense Fleet. The force that had supposedly been weeks away from this sector. Surprise, Marcus said softly. The message I came to deliver? It's simple. Earth knows you're here. Earth knows what you did to Meridian 6, and Earth is extremely uninterested in negotiating. A transmission crackled through the command channel. A human voice, female, cold as vacuum, Korthanian vessel. This is Admiral Catherine Reeves of the EDF Indomitable. You have 60 seconds to power down all weapons and prepare for boarding. Any hostile action will result in your immediate destruction. This is your only warning. Vreltok looked at Marcus, then at his tactical display, then back at the human. His hands moved to the communication panel. Pride warred with survival instinct. Pride lost. Stand down, he ordered his crew. All weapons offline. Prepare for boarding procedures. Marcus nodded approvingly. Smart choice, Commander. See, that's another thing about humans. We're actually pretty reasonable once you stop trying to conquer us. We might even let most of your crew go home eventually. After a very thorough debriefing, of course. How? Vreltok asked, needing to understand. How did you coordinate all of this? I didn't, Marcus replied. I just knew my people would come, because that's what we do. You took our colony, killed our civilians, and thought we'd be too far away to respond. But humans don't abandon their own. We find a way. Always. The interrogation sphere powered down. The neural dampeners released with a hiss. Marcus stood, rolling his shoulders and wincing at the residual pain. That torture device really did a number on me, he admitted. Going to feel that tomorrow. But you know what? Worth it for the look on your face when you realized you'd brought a prisoner aboard who was actually a walking demolition charge. Human boarding teams were already cutting through the hull. Vreltok could hear the sounds of his crew surrendering without resistance. The Third Dominion Fleet's flagship, Pride of the Empire, had been neutralized by one man with a smile and enough audacity to weaponize his own imprisonment. What happens now? Vreltok asked, defeat heavy in his voice. Marcus walked toward the exit, pausing at the threshold. Now you get to do something really special, Commander. You get to go back to your empire and tell them exactly what happened here. Tell them how one human prisoner dismantled your warship from the inside. Tell them how Earth doesn't forget, doesn't forgive, and absolutely will not stop until every single one of our people is safe. He turned back, and his smile had returned, but it was different now. Colder. Tell them the humans are coming, and we're bringing friends. The door opened, revealing human soldiers in combat armor, weapons trained but posture relaxed. Professional. Marcus walked past them like he was strolling through a park, already talking to someone on his communication device about proper medical treatment for the Korthanian crew and prisoner protocols. Vreltok slumped in his command chair, watching his career and quite possibly his life expectancy crumble around him. Kell approached cautiously. Commander, what do we do? He looked at the screens showing human ships holding perfect formation around his crippled vessel, thought about Marcus Cole's casual dismantling of everything the Korthanian Empire thought it knew about warfare, and made a decision. We learn, Sub-Commander, he said quietly. We learn and we make sure this information reaches the High Command before they make the same mistake we did. What mistake was that, sir? Vreltok watched Marcus Cole disappear into the human boarding craft, still smiling, still talking, still impossibly, terrifyingly human. Assuming that because humans smile they're not dangerous. Assuming that because they laugh they're not serious. Assuming that because they seem weak they can't hurt you. He turned to Kelly, his expression grave. The humans don't just fight with weapons, Sub-Commander. They fight with ideas, with psychology, with the absolute conviction that no obstacle is insurmountable if they're creative enough. Outside the ship, Admiral Reeves was already broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies, her message clear and uncompromising. The colony at Meridian 6 would be avenged. The Korthanian invasion would end, and any species in the galaxy thinking about targeting Earth would want to reconsider their life choices. In his cell aboard the Indomitable, Marcus Cole accepted a cup of coffee from a medic and finally allowed himself to relax. The plan had worked. The Empire would spread word of what happened here, and that word would do more damage than any fleet. Fear spreads faster than warships. And the Korthanian Empire had just learned to fear. 3 weeks after the incident that military historians would eventually call the Cole Gambit, The Korthanian High Command convened in their fortress Moon above the capital world of Korth Prime. 63 of the Empire's most powerful military leaders gathered in a chamber designed to inspire fear and obedience, surrounded by holographic displays showing their vast territorial holdings spanning 200 star systems. Today those displays felt less like a celebration and more like a target map. Grand Admiral Thexvor, Supreme Commander of all Imperial forces, sat at the head of the obsidian table with his scales displaying the deep crimson of barely controlled rage. Around him the other admirals and generals waited in tense silence. Nobody wanted to be the one to start this conversation. Reltok stood in the center of the chamber, alone, waiting for judgment. "Explain," Thexvor said, his voice like grinding stone. "Explain how a single human prisoner neutralized one of our most advanced warships without firing a single shot." Reltok had prepared for this moment during the entire humiliating journey home. He had rehearsed his words, considered every angle, and ultimately decided that only absolute honesty would suffice. Anything less would get him executed, and more importantly would doom the Empire to repeat his mistakes. The human designated Marcus Cole exploited 3 critical failures in our operational doctrine, Reltok began, forcing his voice to remain steady. First, our interrogation protocols assume that all species respond to pain similarly. Humans do not. Second, our prisoner transport procedures assume sedatives function universally. They do not work on human metabolism. Third, and most damaging, we assumed that a captured enemy would behave like a defeated enemy. "You are describing incompetence," General Kralix interjected, her voice dripping with contempt. "Your incompetence specifically." "With respect, General, I am describing a systemic vulnerability," Reltok countered. "Every ship in our fleet uses identical protocols. What happened to the Dominion's pride could happen to any vessel. The human did not defeat me. He defeated our entire strategic philosophy." Thexvor's claws scraped against the table. "Continue your report." "The human spent 4 days systematically sabotaging the ship using materials from our own maintenance systems. He mapped our security patterns, identified structural weaknesses, and planted improvised explosive devices in locations our sensors classified as non-threatening. When he triggered the charges, he crippled our hyperdrive, weapons, and communication arrays simultaneously. While restrained and under surveillance, Admiral Pexton said slowly, as if trying to make the words make sense through repetition. "Correct. He moved during authorized transport windows, during waste disposal cycles, and during shift changes. Each window lasted between 90 seconds and 4 minutes. Over 4 days those windows accumulated to sufficient time for comprehensive sabotage." The chamber fell silent, except for the hum of the holographic displays. "Intelligence reports indicate the human fleet knew exactly where we would be," Thexvor said. "How?" "The human carried a subcutaneous tracking device," Reltok admitted. "Our medical scans classified it as biological implant technology, similar to our own neural interface systems. We did not recognize it as a beacon because human technology operates on different frequencies than our sensors prioritize." Kralix stood abruptly. "You were telling this command that humans deliberately sent a saboteur disguised as a prisoner, and we transported him directly into the heart of our warship." "Not exactly," Reltok said carefully. "According to interrogation of other human prisoners, Marcus Cole genuinely was defending Meridian 6. His capture was opportunistic, not planned. However, once captured, he immediately adapted his situation into an operational asset. The tracking beacon was standard equipment for human military personnel. He simply activated it and waited for rescue while conducting sabotage." "Waited for rescue," Thexvor repeated, his tone flat. He trusted that his species would locate one individual among the stars and mount a rescue operation that required repositioning an entire battle fleet. "Yes, Grand Admiral. That is insane. That is humanity," Reltok said quietly. "They do not abandon their own. Ever. Our intelligence severely underestimated their force projection capabilities and drastically underestimated their willingness to commit resources for individual recovery." Pixton pulled up a data file. The human fleet that intercepted you traveled at velocities our ships cannot match. Their FTL engines are somehow 30% more efficient than ours, despite being technologically inferior in every other measurable category. Not inferior, Reltok corrected. Different. Human technology prioritizes redundancy and adaptability over raw performance. Their ships are slower in optimal conditions, but maintain functionality under damage that would cripple our vessels. They design for survival, not dominance. Irrelevant, Kralix snapped. We still outnumber them 50-1. We have more ships, more soldiers, more resources. One clever trick does not change strategic reality. Reltok had expected this response. He pulled up his own holographic display, showing tactical data from the Meridian 6 engagement. General, I submit for your review the complete combat records from the colony assault. Pay particular attention to engagement ratios, casualty distributions, and resource expenditure. The gathered commanders studied the data. Reltok watched their expressions shift from confidence to confusion, to growing alarm. These numbers cannot be correct, Admiral Sector said, his voice hollow. They show our forces suffering 3 losses for every human casualty. The numbers are verified across 7 independent data sources, Reltok confirmed. In every engagement, human forces inflicted disproportionate casualties despite being outnumbered and outgunned. Their soldiers do not retreat when logically defeated. They do not surrender when tactically optimal. They fight until physically incapable of fighting, then they booby-trap their own positions as they withdraw. He pulled up another file. The defensive position Gamma 7, 12 human soldiers held off 300 of our troops for 6 hours. When we finally overran the position, 11 of the humans were dead or dying. The 12th had rigged the entire compound to explode. He waited until our forces clustered for a victory confirmation, then detonated the charges manually, killing himself and 93 of our soldiers. The silence in the chamber had changed quality. This was not the silence of contempt. This was the silence of military professionals recognizing a problem that could not be solved with conventional tactics. They are fanatics, Kralix said, but her voice lacked conviction. No, General, fanatics are irrational. These humans are extraordinarily rational. They simply operate from different axioms than we do. We fight for territory, for resources, for imperial expansion. Humans fight for each other. Every human soldier knows that if they are captured, their entire species will move heaven and earth to retrieve them. That knowledge eliminates fear in a way that no amount of training or indoctrination can match. Fexfer leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. What are you suggesting, Commander? I am suggesting that we fundamentally misunderstood what we were invading, Reltok said, knowing his career was over but hoping his species might learn from his failure. We assumed Earth was like the other 70 species we have conquered, a civilization that would calculate odds, recognize superiority, and surrender once resistance became mathematically futile. He gestured to the holographic display showing Earth, a blue and white sphere that looked deceptively peaceful. Earth is not like other worlds. Humans are not like other species. They have no hive mind to decapitate, no central authority that can surrender on behalf of the whole. They are 8 billion individuals who somehow coordinate like a single organism when threatened. We did not invade a planet, Grand Admiral. We poked a hornet nest with a stick, and are now surprised that the hornets are angry. What do you recommend? Thexfar asked, his voice carefully neutral. Reltok took a breath. This was the moment where he either saved his people, or condemned himself as a coward. Immediate withdrawal from all human claimed space. Full reparations from Meridian 6, and a formal treaty acknowledging Earth as a sovereign power with non-aggression guarantees. Kralix exploded from her seat. Retreat? You want the Korthanian Empire to retreat from a species that controls barely 30 star systems? This is cowardice. This is survival, Reltok shot back. General, I have studied every engagement we have had with humanity. I have analyzed their tactics, their technology, their psychology. I have reached an inescapable conclusion. We cannot defeat them. Absurd. We cannot defeat them, Reltok repeated, louder now, because they do not lose the way other species lose. When we destroy a human ship, The survivors do not despair. They learn, they adapt, they build better ships. When we kill human soldiers, their comrades do not fear, they mourn, then they fight harder. Every attack we make creates more determination, more innovation, more resolve. He pulled up a final file, one he had compiled during sleepless nights aboard his damaged ship. This is a historical analysis of human warfare. For their entire existence as a species, they have been fighting each other. Not border skirmishes, Grand Admiral, total wars. Wars that killed millions of their own kind. Wars that lasted years, decades, generations. And here is the critical fact: they keep getting better at it. The holographic display showed a timeline of human military technology, from primitive chemical explosives to nuclear weapons, to antimatter drives. They went from wooden sailing ships to orbital bombardment platforms in 300 years. They developed atomic weapons, recognized they could destroy themselves, and then chose not to. They created artificial intelligence, sophisticated enough to rival their own consciousness, and built safeguards to control it. They faced extinction-level threats from their own technology and their own nature, and somehow survived by adapting faster than they could self-destruct. Vreltok turned to face Thexvor directly. Grand Admiral, humanity's greatest weapon is not their ships or their soldiers, it is their refusal to accept defeat. We can destroy their fleets, and they will build more. We can occupy their worlds, and they will resist for generations. We can kill billions of them, and the survivors will hunt us to the edge of the galaxy. They are the only species I have ever encountered that treats revenge as a moral imperative and patience as a tactical advantage. Paxton spoke quietly, his voice thoughtful. The human they call Marcus Cole. What happened to him? Released with full honors as part of the prisoner exchange, Vreltok said. He is reportedly back on Earth, training other soldiers in what he calls aggressive infiltration tactics. Intelligence suggests he has already been promoted and is now developing counter-interrogation programs for the entire human military. So we trained our own enemy, Sektar said bitterly. We did more than that, Vreltok replied. We gave them a story. Humans love stories, particularly stories about individuals defeating overwhelming odds. Marcus Cole will be remembered in their culture for centuries. Children will learn his name. Soldiers will study his tactics, and every human in their military will ask themselves what they would do in his situation, then prepare to do exactly that if captured. Theodford drummed his claws on the table, a rhythmic sound that dominated the chamber. Finally he spoke. Command votes, all in favor of continued military operations against Earth? Kralix raised her hand. 2 other generals followed. Out of 63 commanders, only 3 voted for war. All in favor of withdrawal and treaty negotiations? The rest of the hands rose, including Thexvor's own. Motion carries, the Grand Admiral announced. Commander Vreltok, you are hereby appointed as chief negotiator for peace talks with Earth. You broke this situation. You will fix it. Vreltok felt surprise ripple through his body. He had expected execution or exile, not promotion. I am honored, Grand Admiral. Do not be, Thexvor said coldly. You will be negotiating with the species that humiliated you. If you fail, if this war continues, you will be remembered as the commander who lost the Empire's first conflict. If you succeed, you will be remembered as the coward who surrendered to primitives. There is no victory for you here, Vreltok. Only degrees of failure. Understood, Grand Admiral. The meeting adjourned. As the commanders filed out, Paxton approached Vreltok privately. I served with you for 20 cycles, the Admiral said quietly. I have never known you to show fear. But you fear these humans. I do not fear them, Vreltok corrected. I respect them. There is a difference. What did you see in that interrogation chamber that changed you? Vreltok remembered Marcus Cole's smile, remembered the casual way he had dismantled everything Vreltok thought he knew about power and control. I saw a prisoner who was not afraid of his captors. I saw a soldier who trusted his people absolutely. And I saw a species that treats the impossible as merely improbable. He met Paxton's eyes. We Korthanians conquered our way across the galaxy because we were stronger, faster, more technologically advanced than those we subjugated. Humans are none of those things, yet they may be the first species we cannot defeat, because they have something we do not. What? Hope, Relotok said simply. Humans genuinely believe they can overcome any obstacle if they try hard enough, work together, and refuse to give up. That belief makes them dangerous in ways that weapons and ships never could. 3 months later, Relotok stood in a neutral space station orbiting a uninhabited system, waiting for the human delegation. He had spent the time studying everything available about human culture, trying to understand the species he would be negotiating with. The airlock opened. Admiral Catherine Reeves entered first, flanked by diplomats and advisors, and behind them, wearing a crisp dress uniform with new insignia indicating rank elevation, walked Marcus Cole. Of course he was here. Of course the humans would bring the man who had humiliated the Empire to the peace talks. It was a message, loud and clear. We know what we are capable of, and so do you. Marcus saw Relotok and smiled that same disconcerting smile. Commander, he said cheerfully, extending his hand in the human greeting gesture. Good to see you again under better circumstances. Well, better for me, probably still awkward for you. Relotok stared at the offered hand, then carefully grasped it. The human handshake was firm, warm, and somehow managed to convey both threat and friendship simultaneously. Colonel Cole, Relotok replied, having learned the proper pronunciation of human ranks. I admit I did not expect to see you here. Where else would I be? Marcus said, his smile widening. I started this particular conversation. Seemed only right to help finish it. Admiral Reeves stepped forward, her expression professional and cold. Commander Relotok, we are here to discuss terms for the immediate withdrawal of Korthanian forces from human territory and reparations for the massacre at Meridian 6. The Empire is prepared to offer full withdrawal and financial compensation, Relotok said carefully. However, we require assurances that Earth will not pursue retaliatory military action against Korthanian holdings. You attacked us, Reeves said flatly. You killed 3,000 civilians including children, and now you want us to promise we will not hold you accountable? I want to prevent a war that will kill millions on both sides, Relotok replied honestly. Admiral, I have studied your species extensively. You value justice, but you also value pragmatism. Continued conflict serves neither of our peoples. Marcus pulled up a holographic display. How about this, Commander? You withdraw completely. You pay reparations equal to 10 times the reconstruction cost of Meridian 6. You provide full medical and psychological support for survivors. You turn over every individual directly responsible for ordering or conducting the civilian massacres for trial under neutral jurisdiction. That is effectively unlimited liability, Relotok protested. That is justice, Marcus countered. But here is what we offer in return. Once those conditions are met, Earth will sign a non-aggression treaty with Korth. We will establish trade relations. We will share medical technology that could extend your average lifespan by 30%, and we will not spend the next century making your empire's existence a living nightmare. Reeves added, we are offering you peace with honor, Commander. The alternative is peace through exhaustion, which will take much longer and cost far more. Relotok looked between them, seeing the calculation in Reeves's eyes and the genuine hope in Marcus's. These humans negotiated the same way they fought, with overwhelming pressure combined with offers of mercy. If I agree to these terms, will Earth truly honor the peace? Marcus leaned forward, his expression serious for the first time since entering the room. Commander, humans keep our promises. When we say we will be your enemy, we mean it forever. When we say we will be your friend, we mean that forever too. You get to choose which one we are. Relotok thought about Meridian 6, about the Cole Gambit, about everything he had learned regarding human nature. He thought about the future of the Korthanian Empire and the choice that would define his legacy. I accept your terms, he said finally, all of them. The negotiations took 6 weeks to finalize. Treaties were signed, reparations scheduled, war criminals identified for trial. Throughout it all, Relotok found himself working closely with Marcus Cole, who proved to be as skilled at diplomacy as he was at sabotage. On the final day, as the delegations prepared to depart, Marcus approached Vreltok privately. "You know what the funny thing is?" Marcus said, looking out at the stars. "You almost won at Meridian 6. If you had just left after the initial attack, Earth probably would have sued for peace. We were not ready for a major war. Then why did you resist so fiercely?" "Because humans are really bad at knowing when to quit," Marcus replied with a laugh. "It is simultaneously our greatest strength and our most annoying weakness. We see a problem, and we just keep throwing ourselves at it until something breaks. Usually the problem. Sometimes the way we refuse to walk away." "That seems exhausting." "Oh, it absolutely is," Marcus agreed. "But it is also why we are still here after 4 billion years of evolution, trying to kill us." He turned to Vreltok, his expression thoughtful. "You did the right thing, Commander. Peace was always the only logical outcome once you understood what you were really facing. A species that refuses to lose. A species that treats hope as a weapon," Marcus corrected. "We believe tomorrow can be better than today. We believe problems can be solved. We believe that if we just try hard enough, we can achieve anything. That belief makes us insufferable optimists and absolutely terrible enemies." Vreltok clicked his mandibles in the Korthanian equivalent of laughter. "Colonel Cole, I must ask, during your imprisonment, were you truly confident rescue would arrive?" Marcus paused, then smiled that dangerous smile. "I was 90% certain. But even if they had not come, I had already planted enough explosives to take the entire ship with me. So really, I was going home one way or another." "You would have killed yourself and 3,000 crew members to prevent your fleet from attacking another human colony?" Marcus shrugged. "In a heartbeat, Commander, that is what I mean about humans being bad at quitting. We will sacrifice everything if the cause is right." Vreltok understood then, truly understood, why withdrawal had been the only option. You could not defeat an enemy that viewed mutual destruction as an acceptable outcome. The human delegation departed, their ships accelerating toward Earth with impossible grace. Vreltok watched them go, feeling something he had not expected: relief. The Korthanian Empire had been humbled, but it survived. In 50 years, maybe 100, historians would debate whether the peace was surrender or wisdom. Vreltok did not care. He had seen the alternative, had looked into the eyes of a species that weaponized hope and turned imprisonment into victory. Some wars could be won. This was not one of them. As his ship prepared for the return journey to Korth Prime, Vreltok recorded a final message for the Imperial Archives, knowing it would be studied by military strategists for generations. "To future commanders who may consider conflict with humanity," he began, choosing his words carefully, "I offer this counsel: do not mistake their laughter for weakness, their mercy for softness, or their hope for naivety. Humans are not the strongest species, nor the fastest, nor the most technologically advanced, but they may be the most dangerous, because they genuinely believe they cannot lose, and belief, I have learned, can reshape reality in ways that firepower never will." He paused, remembering Marcus Cole's smile one last time. "If you must face humanity, do so with overwhelming respect. Because the alternative is learning, as I did, that some species do not need to be superior to be unstoppable, they just need to refuse to quit." The recording ended, the ship jumped to FTL, and somewhere in the galaxy, humans continued being impossibly, insufferably, gloriously human. The Empire had learned to fear a smile. It was a lesson they would not forget.